Greetings, fellow human. If you have received this video, it is because someone in your life believes you're having some trouble staying in your lane. Perhaps not. Maybe you are just here to get a better understanding of how to stay in your lane. This video provides a general overview of the stay in your lane scale. The scale of stay in your lane goes from 0 to 11. This is people who should and should not be sharing their opinions through their posts or in comment sections with regards to any given topic. Here at GracespacE, we believe that if more people adhered to the stay in your lane code of conduct, the internet would be a much better place, rather than the dumpster fire we all know today. Remember, just because everyone else on the internet chooses to be a piece of shit doesn't mean you have to join. We will use standard American driving rules and signage to help us navigate a variety of topics over time. We won't be discussing any topics in particular today, but rather breaking down the scale. If you have any topics, situations, or common debates you would like to see broken down on the stay in your lane scale, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Let's get going. We'll start with the basics. Here in America, red light means stop, do not proceed. Yellow light means slow down, but proceed with caution. And green light means go on ahead. In that case, when we're talking about going with the green light, it means, hey, share anything that you're willing to share. We appreciate your time and your energy, and anything that's too taxing, don't worry, you don't owe us anything. If you see that you align with green light energy under any given topic, we do invite you to be a part of educating the rest of us. You'll find that we do have a color legend. You'll notice we have a fire here. This is an arsonist. This person should go directly to jail. They should stop and not proceed. Never ever share anything. We also have what I would like to think of as kind of our unofficial traffic cop. You know, the person that hops out of the car when there's obviously a traffic issue that probably needs some human intervention because the electronics have stopped working, and they get out and they're kind of, okay, you go this way, go that way. And they help the traffic ease until real cops get there, or until someone comes and fixes the light, or until the intersection's clear. This is the type of person that we would put at number 11. These people really, please allow us to make room so that you can do your job. Thank you for your service and your willingness to stand in the gap. That's how these people should be treated when they come in and they share. Now, sometimes you're going to see some flashing lights. Flashing lights represents an energy where you walk into a conversation, there's a lot of red light people talking. You know the red lights. The red light people who don't know anything about the topic, but for some reason have a very strong opinion. Yeah, do not engage. You need to just check and make sure that this isn't a waste of your breath or your energy, no matter where you fall on the scale. So if you see a flashing red light, that's going to be, hey, stop, proceed with caution, just like you would see in the American stop sign. And when you see a flashing yellow light, slow down and be prepared to most likely stop, because some conversations might look like, oh, it's no big deal. This is okay. Everybody seems pretty chill until you really read the tone. If there's any whistling going on, you get my drift, right? So sometimes it might look like it's a conversation that you could contribute to, but what you're going to realize with these flashing lights is this is going to be determined by the type of person that you are engaging with. So let's go ahead and get onto this scale. Someone who is at 0, this is someone who has never heard of this, whatever this is, until this exact moment. They have no other connections to it and probably would only think about it again if they saw it like on the news or something or in social media. There's no possible way they could have anything that would be of guaranteed help with this situation because they don't know enough about it. They've never experienced it, and their brain has only really just begun to process information through their personal lenses and their biases. So if you are this person, you're considered completely unaware. And if you know, I have no idea about this whatsoever, you might inadvertently spread misinformation or a misunderstanding of the topic. And it might lead to inadvertent harm or misinformation within any movements that are developing. So it's going to be really important for you to consider approaching these discussions with humility and just be willing to learn from others and value their perspectives. And you also have people who are going to say, oh, I've never heard of it, but they don't want to admit or acknowledge that they're unaware. They maybe feel like they still have some understanding even though they've never heard of it. It's just very important that you also consider, until you've had a chance to educate yourselves, the insights you provide are really unlikely to be valuable. So just try to seek out some reliable sources and educate yourself. Now let's go another step forward. This is somebody who, they've heard about this, they've also formed an opinion like in that moment, but they never did any research, they never asked questions, they never reflected really at all. And they don't really have any connections to it. They only think about it when they see it on social media, when it pops up, but otherwise they just know what it is. So this is people who can say, well, yeah, I know that it exists, but I don't know what it is, or I've heard things about it, but they might not be true. I don't know. This could even be people who aren't really good at understanding this type of thing, and they might even kind of mess it up, and people who don't really have the skills needed to understand it. And so this is going to be something where some people might just struggle to articulate their thoughts. Some people might oversimplify things that are really complex or even make unfounded assertions. This is where people can even unintentionally spread misinformation and then say like, oh, I'm not spreading misinformation. So now it turns into this whole thing, but it's like, you might not have even realized you did that, So I think that it might be important to start slow and just try to understand the topic a little bit more. Just so that you don't have to worry about engaging in an argument that's more about arguing than it is about the actual topic at hand. The goal here is for people in this position to practice active listening and to seek clarification if they're not sure about something, to acknowledge your limitations and really focus on asking better questions so that you can understand the topic. It might not be something some people are used to doing on the internet, maybe in person, maybe at work, maybe with things they care about, but with something random that's just popped up that they don't know much about, but maybe they've got the time today, it can be very, very easy to fall into that trap. So we want to verify information before we share it and be open to correcting misconceptions, especially if we were the ones who created them. There is another side of this, and this is people who are just completely like clueless. They don't even know anything about it, but they think they do. There's people even on the other side of this who they're new and they're not great at it and they could get better, but they don't think that. People who have just started, but there's still really big concepts that they haven't connected with. People who haven't really engaged with it that much. People who simply have not gained enough information. So whether you're insufficiently trained, whether you have significant gaps because you're just a beginner or a novice, or whether you really are clueless, you can start to see that there's these patterns where if you don't approach something with humility, and if you're really more so engaging in behaviors like online behaviors, but less information gathering or actual academic or even intellectual debates, well, what are you really doing? And how much of your time are you wasting? Some people really just have a limited capacity to understand certain things or are even inept in certain areas. There are things that, as smart as I think I am, I don't understand. We can put higher value on certain topics and lower value on others, but in the moment, I think every human being's shame and embarrassment of not knowing something feels the same. And so the goal here is to release a little bit of that, because if you're a 1 on this scale, but you're choosing to engage in arguments and you're ending up in the red a lot, you clearly don't recognize what you're doing. All right, let's go another level further. Now, this might be somebody on level 2. They've heard about this before. They didn't form an opinion right away in the moment, but they still didn't do any research. They didn't ask questions. They didn't reflect. They don't have any connections to it. They don't think about it other than when they see it. So they've heard, but they didn't form an opinion. And I think that having this limited understanding can feel like you still are allowed to contribute sometimes. And certain things you're going to find that on certain scales, pretty much anybody can talk about it, whatever the topic is. And then certain scales, you're going to find pretty much only people who have that highest level experience and understanding of it should. But this level can be a little bit tricky because you think that you're taking an open-minded approach, but just because you're proficient in theory, that doesn't mean you're not lacking practical skills. So you might know a lot about it in books, but that doesn't mean you're actually good at doing it. You might not really have the knowledge or skill to be considered good, and not knowing that, you don't know what you're missing. You might not know which skills you need to gain to be able to be good at it, to understand it. And some people in this position might even know about it, but don't really know how to use the knowledge. So they struggle a little bit to translate that knowledge. And then that means they're also struggling to hear that translated from others. There are a lot of opportunities to learn and grow in this position, but there's a willingness that must be here where you plan to eventually form an opinion. Even if you say, I don't have one now and I'm not going to have one soon, but you do plan to because you've decided you want to start to do the research. If you're in that position and you haven't yet reached the point of going deeper, that doesn't give you the right to jump into every single argument. The irony is that a lot of people are going to see something like this and be like, duh. And yet there are going to be other people who are sent this and it's like, I hadn't really thought about engaging online and how I might engage in person. I just never thought about the difference there. I never thought about how I might feel more comfortable. There are some people who are very aware of online etiquette, people who've been online since online existed. And then there are people who are very new to it, who social media has introduced them to this level of connection. Thank you for those of you who are taking the time to say, let me figure out where I might fall and how I could actually fall at different points along this scale for different topics, and how every topic requires a little more nuance or a little less stress than others. And I have to be prepared to make those judgments every day. That's something that a lot of people are just now realizing is going to be really important for them moving forward. So let's talk about level 3. So now we're reaching the edge of our mostly average scale. And this is probably the last stage of being in the red and really not having much to contribute to a conversation other than perhaps really good questions or basic understandings to be clarified. We can think about level 3 as, I've heard of this, I have done some research, I've asked some questions, I've reflected on this a little bit, but I just don't really have any other connections about this. This is not something I spend a lot of my mental energy on. This area is where we have some of the worst examples of keyboard warriors and digital activists. These are people who do not really know much about what they're discussing, but they feel a lot of passion towards it and perhaps even have habits of being argumentative or creating a lot more opportunities to debate rather than educate. So these are people who will say, hey, I have a really basic understanding, but maybe also have kind of an expertise deficiency, right? They're missing certain things that are needed to be really good at grasping the complexities. There even could be people here that they're not just bad at it, but the actions that they're taking might make things worse. This is where we have to really just understand these people don't mean to be this way in some cases, but many of them have almost like a cyclical or habitual approach to being on the internet, which is creating trouble, stirring the pot. Depending on the type of person that they are, if they're a really good person, they might think, hey, this is the way to do it. And if they're not so good of a person, maybe they're more cynical or very negative, they might be doing things that can really bring the conversation down. And when that happens, if someone who really does mean well and maybe does have a higher level of understanding comes in, even they could get caught up in this person's activism. If you have been brought here or this particular portion has been shared with you, maybe look into what a keyboard warrior or a digital activist is in terms of the negative aspects, and just see if there are any behaviors that are showing up in the way that you respond, in the way that you engage online. Now, level 4, we finally have reached our average scale. In general, with any given topic, having this level of understanding means that they can proceed with caution. They can be a part of debates and conversations without necessarily making things bad and making things worse, okay? A novice is someone who might say, hey, I've heard of this before. I've done research. I've asked questions. I've reflected on this before I formed an opinion. I don't have other connections to this. I only really think about it when it comes up. I don't really keep up with current events, but I do know people who have experienced this, which gives me a little bit more, what I would say is intentionality begins really right here. This is somebody who, because they saw how it affected people, even though it's not their life, decided to at least get a better understanding. This is that true foundational knowledge. They're new to it, they're still learning the basics, and they understand that. They've just started learning, maybe even going beyond the basics, but this could go from novice all the way to the edge of being like maybe an advanced beginner. These people should really work on maybe acknowledging that they don't know much and express, hey, I'm always open and willing to learn, and come in to bring maybe a fresh perspective and energy as somebody who has maybe not been jaded by whatever's going on, but also has that passion to see change or to see things get better. I think that these people can actively participate. They just need to avoid asserting any expertise beyond their current level. The next couple levels are pretty similar here, right? Level 5 is the advanced beginner. I know what I think is a decent amount about this, enough to discuss the basics and keep up with current events, but otherwise I'm not connected to this. So maybe this person also knows somebody who's a level 9 or higher and saw how this impacted them. So again, having that connection to someone who's gone through it and enough care to learn about it, to understand what's going on, means that this person can engage in a conversation and is probably less likely to bring the conversation to a low. They're just starting to learn about it, but they still know more than the average beginner. Now, level 6 is someone who might be competent or proficient, right? They're actually interested perhaps in becoming an expert. They've spent a great deal of time learning about it. And because of that, they're aware that they don't know enough to educate others in a meaningful way. They're good at it. They can do things in this space without much help, or even people who are really good at it and they can do it easily. But still, these people do need to bow to those who are much higher up on the scale, even in those moments where maybe they could be supporting and bolstering a movement's credibility, offering practical strategies, just in theory, right? While still being open to the reality of the situation. They might even play a key role in shaping the movement's direction and strategy, depending on if they're willing to foster constructive dialogue, if they can offer those nuanced perspectives, share the perspectives of those who are on that 9 or higher that they might know, and be that voice. We might look at these people and say, hey, this is the beginning of even allyship. Now, the next level, this is that final level on the average scale of stay in your lane, where we have someone who is more experienced, probably the most experienced of all. They have a large amount of indirect experience with a subject, maybe through the in-person accounts of others about what's currently happening, as well as maybe the origins of the story. Like, I learned about this because I'm interested in helping to eliminate the issue or to educate others on its complexities. These are people who are, again, experienced, who are advanced. They've done a lot. They know how to handle different situations, or even they're really, really good at it. And they even know some of the more tricky aspects of it. Now, these people can maybe even start to offer practical advice or solutions. They might even be able to identify trends, anticipate future developments. You'll start to notice that pattern of the more you know, the more you've chosen to educate yourself and have a deeper understanding, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding about a situation, the more you are able to provide. This is the issue with online and social media communication. Most of the time, we're not doing anything. We're not helping. If we are people who do have areas where we are a 9 or a 10 or an 11, we are really, really good, but we're not helping. And then we're jumping into other areas where maybe we're a 0, 1, 2, 3, and we're engaging in pointless conversations. It just kind of creates this vicious cycle where none of us are in our lane, none of us are happy, and there's a lot of division that gets created there. The goal here is, even for someone who's a level 7 on any given average topic, might not feel completely comfortable being in the position of somebody who's actually going through it, or, actually being affected by whatever this issue is. You would want to continue to try to become, again, whether it's an actual ally, an actual activist, an actual professional in the space, someone who's really going to make a difference, or at the very least acknowledge, this is about as far as I can go here. I will never, it doesn't matter if 10 years has gone by and I have the same level 7 experience, but because it's years have gone by, now I'm an 11, now I'm a 10. No, you're still a 7. And to be able to acknowledge that there are just certain things that's not in your lane is okay. And I think we've lost that. I think there's an expectation in society now where it's like, everyone needs to be on my side about all the things I'm on the side of about, it's like all of it. And if you're not, and you don't have the same level of passion as I do, then you're bad. And we don't want to be bad. So we try to step forward, but then we end up really hurting the movements. And so we've got to learn how to fix that pattern of behavior. Let's go into the green. Let's talk a little bit about the people who really are the best source of information, the best source of direction in how to do things, how to handle things, what is needed on any given subject or topic. Level 8 is an expert. They have a large amount of direct experience with the subject at hand, in person, and can also give first-hand accounts of what is currently happening, as well as the origins of the story. They can tell you how it started. They can tell you what's going on right now. They can tell you how it got to where it is. This is someone who says, I learned about this because I'm interested in helping to eliminate the issue or educate others on its complexities. These are our experts, our masters, okay? These are people who you would say, you're one of the best. You know almost everything there is to know, or you're almost like a superhero at it. You know everything and you do it flawlessly. And these people can really have an authoritative voice, and this deep expertise can lend considerable momentum and credibility to any movement. providing these authoritative insights and solutions that are backed by this comprehensive expertise and this mastery, it just provides insights that can change things, can transform a movement. And it's so important that we make room for these people. But oftentimes these people are tired of speaking up, even when we hit level 8, because usually 9, 10, 11 is where you start to see like these are people who are, they're in the movement because it's their life, right? And you can start to understand why they care about it. But I think that level 8 is an interesting point where these people are outside of it enough that it may be easier for them to think outside the box on it, but also passionate enough about it to bring so much awareness and education, but no one really wants to hear from them. They kind of might come across as a know-it-all, that it's easy to we've gotten to that point actually, where if you're not an 11 about something, we actually really don't respect what you have to say. But we want everybody to be on the side of the 11 person, even if they don't know how to actually help. We've created a really difficult landscape for us to navigate as human beings that care about each other and want the world to be a better place, because we've gotten so caught up in the politics aspect of it, not just like red versus blue politics, but like when someone says you're just politicking, you get what I'm saying? We've gotten so caught up in that we actually miss those opportunities to make a real difference. And instead we've just become super argumentative. And I think an expert could come in and help to bring through the humility of, hey, I think that I can actually help here, right? Not coming in as being a jerk about it, but just, hey, this person is really good at this. They're inspiring because they are probably a visionary. To me, everybody from 8 and above, any average situation is going to be that kind of person that we should be listening to, but we just don't give a voice. 9, this is someone who is actively living this experience and the situation directly, or in some cases, it can indirectly impact their life. And it's like, I know why and how this happened without needing to read a newspaper or an academic story. Like, I may not be an expert at articulating the situation, but I am just as likely to experience the issue because of my proximity, and I have the right to feel concerned. So this is people who are either directly involved or maybe they're right on the outskirts and it definitely affects them. There's a lot of stuff in life that most of us are pretty far removed from. It's just our stuff that, because we're in it, that we really care about, or the stuff that really could affect us that we care about, but not enough of us know how to combine our efforts anymore. That's kind of been lost. And social media is a really good place to get lost even deeper in the nothingness, right? The doing nothing. I think that we would look at the person that's a 9 and we could call them like an authority or a guru. They're a boss, or, maybe everyone looks to them for advice because of what they've gone through. They might be really instrumental in mobilizing support and resources for the movement. Or even, hey, you're very wise. You're kind of like a teacher in this space. You know everything and you help others learn. You have that passion. And just because it's a part of your life, it's very natural to learn these things from you. These people in this green section are often going to have very transformative insights. They're going to help shift paradigms and perspectives that challenge the conventional wisdom about any given situation. The issue though, these people normally get tired of screaming about a particular thing. Most of them will never give up, but some of them, especially when it comes to online Discord, just don't even bother anymore because they're so tired of arguing with the 0s, 1s, 2s who maybe don't know much but have a lot to say and can even be like maybe insulting. It just, the closer you get to the top numbers, the more likely you are that a person has gotten to a point where they feel like they're wasting their breath. That's the goal of this scale, to have all of us know when to make room, when to bump a comment to the top. So that's the one everyone sees first because it's the person who has the real information. Let's look a little bit at 10. This is someone who's like, look, I'm actively living this experience. The situation directly, again, sometimes it's indirectly impacting their life. I have expert level knowledge of the subject at hand. So this is someone who lives it and is an expert. And you'll notice the way that this is set up is an 8 is an expert. They've learned. A 9 is someone who lives it. 10 is someone who has lived it and decided, I'm going to become an actual activist. I'm going to make this my purpose. This is someone who says, I know how and why this happened because of my personal experience, because of my academic pursuits. And though I might live out my purpose in other ways, I support those engaged in activism. And I often speak out and spread awareness in my small community about it. So these are experts with practical experience, experts with deep theoretical knowledge. They're good at it because they've done it a lot, or they know everything because they've seen it in books and theories. And when you combine that with their personal experiences or with the level and depth that they've gone on into these situations, they have the real world, like case studies almost. They can illustrate the most complex aspects of these topics. These are the people, because they've got the real world experience, that can really enrich a movement's strategies. These are the people that can share things on social media that if they were to actually spread around and people said, oh, so the way to help XYZ movement is to do ABC, great, let's do that. Instead of seeing that XYZ movement has now been taken over by another political troll nonsensical situation. They are the ones who are going to help to inform the long-term vision of any movement or situation or topic, shape the intellectual foundations of like the next phase of this. So this is another group where the more academic we get, the closer we get to the core of the issue of whatever this situation or problem is, the less likely you are to hear a lot of loud voices. Thinking about the difference between, let's say, like a protest and then like an academic conference. There's very few voices. There's very few people that go to, let's say, a TED Talk. I mean, there's a lot, right? Sure, but very few in terms of the population. But then you might have a lot of people go to a protest. Now, I'm not speaking about either one as good or bad. My point is, consider the difference. Consider what a person might be able to learn from sitting in that smaller group about the movement versus the purpose of a protest. We may have nowadays an issue with some empty protests where people really mean well and the passion is there, but there's nothing that actually kind of backs up whatever we're trying to talk about, so nothing changes. And that can create frustration. That can create even more outspoken voices that are begging to be heard. They care, but have nothing valuable to say. This is where we've got to figure out, how do we get the people that have the solutions out there to those people who have that passion and those outspoken voices. If we could get 10s and 11s to communicate to 3s, those keyboard warriors and digital activists, if we could get them to communicate, we might actually have an entire globe of keyboard warriors that does something good. But we've got to get the right people in the right places. Thinking about that, let's look at number 11. Let's look at kind of the highest, right? So think about it like this. If I said to you on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you know? And then I said, but say 0 if you really know nothing, and say 11 if surprisingly this is your thing. You kind of get that, right? So in 11, I live, breathe, eat, sleep, and exist in this space, and I'm an activist. I'm from there and I'm still there, that kind of thing. You know, I also work towards this cause in a real and meaningful way as a part of my life purpose. I am aware of both sides. So this is not someone who does all this because of bias, and also understands because of their proximity to the matter and because they know what they know and they still believe in their cause, and it's with both love and logic. And even if they only fight for one side, you know, the side they would say is my side, it's like, I see my work change lives and perspectives on a daily basis. I make the world a better place through the work I do. And what we would call this person is an expert with lived experiences. If you are the top expert because you've lived it and breathed it all day, you are the person we need speaking the loudest. And if you know someone who's like that, many of you are going to say, you know what, you're right. That person, unless they're given a chance to talk, they don't yell. Unless they're given an opportunity to speak, they're tired of screaming. But it's like, this person's firsthand experiences could provide a powerful catalyst for change within any movement. They could amplify marginalized voices and drive advocacy efforts. I mean, this person could help foster empathy and understanding in any discussion because they get it. You'll notice as time goes forward that the scale may shift and change, and that I may describe the people on any given level a little bit differently, but that is just going to depend on the topic. But overall, I do think this is a great scale of understanding that kind of says, hey, you need to slow down a little bit. I don't think this is your area of expertise, and that's totally okay. Remember, you guys, this is not an issue of free speech. You have the right to speak freely in all spaces. This is about relearning respect, empathy, and how to have a simple conversation. Just because everyone else on the internet chooses to be this way, that doesn't mean you have to join, especially where certain topics are concerned. Certain things you really shouldn't be engaging, not the way we would typically see. We shouldn't be making these things worse. They're too sensitive for that, you know? And yet, here we go. If you choose not to stay in your lane or ignore these social cues, it won't change anything. But if you choose to be a better person today and every day moving forward, it will change everything. And that choice is yours. I truly believe if more people adhered to the stay in your lane code of conduct, the internet would be a better place. And this dumpster fire, I think it's time we put it out. And I think the way we're going to start with that is not by finding the arsonists and doing something with them. It's by convincing them to stop lighting things on fire. So if you believe that there's somebody out there who needs to see this video or any of the other videos that we're going to do that actually go topic by topic, please send it to them. There is a way that you can clip videos here on YouTube. Clip the video, clip the part that you think they might be exhibiting certain behaviors of and send it to them. Let them know that there is a better way. And hey, you might be doing it to be snarky, but you never know. They may come see this video and realize this isn't the person that they want to be. I hope you'll stay tuned and check out more of our Stay in Your Lane video series. If you are interested in being a part of this or have anything that you'd like me to go over in the future, something you could share with a friend or family member or whoever, leave that information in the comments below and I will do my best to get to as many topics as possible. And I think if we can get more people to say, you know what, you're right, I'm going to be quiet now, or I'm going to just ask some questions, or I'm going to go do some research on the internet before I come back to this conversation, that everything would just be so much better. If you feel that way too, give this video a thumbs up. Please do subscribe to my beautiful new channel, and I will talk to you later. Okay, maybe new videos out every Wednesday or Saturday. I don't know. I'm not really sure just yet. Hopefully, maybe, probably. I'm gonna try to maybe entertain you guys a little bit later. Okay, love you, bye. Okay, bye.